The laughter cut through the air like shattered glass. 3 young women huddled near the counter, not even trying to hide their snickering as they watched Mike fumble with the small revolver, his calloused hands trembling slightly. What they didn't know was that those hands had rocked his daughter to sleep every night for the past 8 years. What they couldn't see was the weight he carried, not just as a father, but as both parents to a little girl who'd never known her mother. If you've ever felt judged for trying to protect your family, or if you've ever been the one person standing up when everyone else chose to look away, this story might just remind you why kindness matters more than we realize. Like, subscribe, and join our community where we share stories that remind us of our shared humanity. Mike Reynolds shifted uncomfortably under the fluorescent lights of Liberty Firearms, acutely aware of the whispers and giggles coming from the group of women by the ammunition display. At 42, he looked older, his once dark hair now peppered with gray, deep lines etched around his eyes from years of worry and sleepless nights. Is this what you'd recommend for home defense?" he asked the young sales associate, his voice quieter than he intended. "Something simple, reliable. I've never owned a gun before." The associate, barely in his 20s with a name tag reading, Tyler, barely looked up from his phone. "Yeah, I guess. The Smith & Wesson .38 is pretty standard. Not too complicated." Mike nodded, trying to appear confident as he held the revolver. The weight felt foreign in his hand. 8 years of raising Emma alone had taught him to change diapers one-handed, to braid hair with surprising dexterity, to cook while helping with homework. But this was different. "Does it come with, like, instructions?" he asked, immediately regretting the question when he heard the laughter grow louder. One of the women, tall, with expertly highlighted hair, made no attempt to lower her voice. "Instructions? Is he serious? Maybe he should stick to water guns." Her friends erupted in laughter, one of them adding, "Probably can't even load it without shooting himself in the foot." Mike's face burned. He carefully set the revolver down, suddenly wanting nothing more than to leave. But the image that had kept him awake for weeks flashed through his mind again, the broken window in Emma's bedroom, the police officer explaining that break-ins were becoming more common in their once quiet neighborhood, and the terrifying realization that if someone came into their home, he had no way to protect his daughter. "I'll just come back another time," he mumbled to Tyler, who shrugged indifferently. As Mike turned to leave, the shop's back door swung open. A tall man with silver hair and the posture of someone who had served in the military stepped out. His weathered face was serious, but his eyes were kind. The name, Frank Garrison, was embroidered on his shirt, with "Owner" beneath it. Frank took in the scene in an instant, the laughing women, the embarrassed customer, his disinterested employee. His expression hardened. "Ladies," he said, his voice carrying across the shop without him having to raise it. "Is there something particularly amusing about a father wanting to protect his family?" The shop fell silent. The women's smiles faded. Frank walked over to Mike and extended his hand. "Frank Garrison. I own this place." "Mike Reynolds," Mike replied, shaking his hand firmly despite his embarrassment. Frank studied him for a moment. "First-time gun owner?" Mike nodded. "My daughter Emma is 8. We had a break-in attempt last month. The police said they're stretched thin, response times are getting longer, and I just..." He trailed off, not wanting to sound paranoid. "You don't need to explain wanting to keep your child safe," Frank said. Then, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Sir, it's an honor to help you today." The women looked away, suddenly very interested in the floor tiles. Frank turned to Tyler. "Take your break now. I'll help Mr. Reynolds myself." As Tyler slunk away, Frank guided Mike to a quieter corner of the shop. "Being a single parent isn't easy. I raised my son alone after my wife passed. Military widow." Mike's shoulders relaxed slightly. Emma's mom left when she was 6 months old. Decided parenthood wasn't for her. Frank nodded without judgment. Then you've been doing the job of two people for a long time. That takes courage, more courage than most people in this shop have ever needed. For the next hour, Frank patiently walked Mike through the basics. He explained different options, focusing on what would be manageable for a beginner. He demonstrated proper handling, storage, and emphasized the importance of training. The gun itself is just a tool, Frank explained. The real security comes from knowing how to use it safely, how to store it responsibly, and understanding when it should and shouldn't be used. By the time they finished the paperwork for the background check, Mike felt a newfound confidence, not just about the potential purchase, but about his decision to take this step for Emma's safety. As Mike was leaving, Frank handed him a business card. "We offer free safety classes for first-time owners. And this," he wrote something on the back, "is my personal number. Any questions, day or night, you call me." Mike looked at the card, touched by the unexpected kindness. "Thank you. I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything," Frank replied. "Just promise me one thing, bring Emma by sometime. My granddaughter helps out on weekends. She's 9. Maybe they could be friends." That night, as Mike tucked Emma into bed, she looked up at him with her mother's eyes. "Dad, are you still worried about the bad people?" Mike smoothed her hair. "A little. But I'm taking steps to make sure we're safe." "Like what?" "Well, I met someone today who's going to teach me how to protect our home better. And his granddaughter might become your new friend." Emma smiled. "Is he nice?" Mike thought about Frank, about the respect he'd shown when others had only offered ridicule. "Yes, sweetheart. He's very nice. He understood something that not everyone does." "What's that?" "That being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. Sometimes, being brave means doing something even when you are scared, because you love someone so much." Emma considered this, then wrapped her small arms around his neck. "Like how I went to the doctor for my shots even though I was scared?" Mike hugged her back, his heart full. "Exactly like that." Over the following weeks, Mike became a regular at Liberty Firearms. He completed the safety course, practiced at the range, and gradually grew comfortable with his new responsibility. Frank became not just a mentor but a friend, offering advice that went beyond firearms, tips about raising a daughter alone, about finding moments of joy amid the challenges of single parenthood. The women who had laughed never returned to the shop during Mike's visits, but their mockery had left a mark. Not of shame, but of determination. Each time Mike practiced, each time he improved, he remembered their laughter and Frank's words, "Sir, it's an honor." One Saturday, Mike brought Emma to meet Frank's granddaughter, Lily. The girls hit it off immediately, disappearing into Frank's office to draw while the men talked. "You know," Frank said, watching the girls through the glass, "most people think gun shops are just about selling weapons. But I've always seen it differently." "How so?" Mike asked. "This place isn't about guns. It's about security. Peace of mind. It's about a father being able to sleep at night knowing he's done everything he can to keep his child safe." Frank turned to Mike. "Those women who laughed at you? They've never had to lie awake wondering if they could protect someone who depends on them completely." Mike nodded, understanding. "But you," Frank continued, "you came in here despite your fear, despite your inexperience, because Emma needed you to. That's why I said it was an honor to help you. Because courage isn't about being fearless, it's about being afraid and doing what needs to be done anyway." 6 months later, Mike never had to use his gun for home defense. The security system Frank had recommended, along with new locks and lighting, had been enough to deter any potential intruders. But the confidence he'd gained extended beyond home security. He'd started volunteering at Emma's school, no longer intimidated by being the only dad among mostly mothers at PTA meetings. He'd begun dating again, cautiously, always putting Emma first, but open to the possibility of sharing their life with someone new. And every other weekend, Emma and Lily had playdates, sometimes at the Reynolds home, sometimes at Frank's. One evening, as Mike was closing up his small carpentry workshop, the door chimed. He looked up to see one of the women from the gun shop, the tall one with the highlighted hair who had laughed the loudest. "We're closed," he said, surprised to see her. She shifted uncomfortably. "I know. I'm not here for furniture. I'm here to apologize." Mike set down his tools. "Apologize?" "I'm Jennifer," she said. "I was at Liberty Firearms that day, with my friends. We were cruel to you." Mike said nothing, waiting. "My brother's house was broken into last week," she continued. "His kids were home. He wasn't." Her voice cracked slightly. "He called me afterward, terrified about what could have happened, asking if I knew anything about home defense. And suddenly, I remembered you, and how we laughed at you for trying to protect your daughter." She looked directly at him. "I was wrong. We were wrong. And I'm sorry." Mike studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Thank you for saying that." Jennifer turned to leave, then paused. "Frank was right, you know. What you were doing that day, it was honorable." After she left, Mike locked up and drove to pick up Emma from her after-school program. As they walked to the car together, her small hand in his, she chattered about her day, about a science project, about Lily's upcoming birthday party. Mike listened, filled with a profound gratitude. For Emma. For Frank's friendship. Even, in a strange way, for those women whose laughter had led him to this moment, more confident, more connected to his community, more at peace with his role as Emma's protector and guide. That night, after Emma was asleep, Mike called Frank. "Remember what you said to me that first day?" Mike asked. "About it being an honor to help me?" "I remember," Frank replied. "One of those women came to apologize today. She said you were right, that what I was doing was honorable." Mike paused. "I never thanked you properly for standing up for me that day." Frank's voice was warm. "No thanks needed. Just pay it forward. Someday, you'll see someone being judged for trying to do right by their family. When that happens, be the one who stands up." "I will," Mike promised. And he meant it. As the years passed, Mike kept that promise. When a young mother came into his carpentry shop, asking for a custom lock installation because she was afraid of her ex-husband, Mike not only did the work at cost but introduced her to Frank. When a new neighbor, recently widowed, struggled to secure his home while caring for his elderly father, Mike and Emma brought dinner and helped install motion sensor lights. Emma grew from a little girl into a thoughtful teenager who understood that strength came in many forms, and that sometimes the strongest people were those who had once been afraid but found their courage through love. And Liberty Firearms evolved too. Frank eventually retired, selling the shop to a former military couple who maintained his philosophy that security wasn't just about weapons but about community, about looking out for one another, about recognizing the honor in protecting those we love. The story of the single dad in the gun shop became something of a legend in their small community, a reminder that judgment comes easy, but understanding requires effort, that mockery costs nothing, but kindness is invaluable, and that sometimes, the most honorable acts are the quiet ones, performed not for recognition but out of love. Because in the end, that's what Mike had learned from that day, that honor isn't found in grand gestures or perfect knowledge. It's found in the willingness to be vulnerable for the sake of those who depend on you. It's found in the courage to try, even when you might fail. And sometimes, it's found in the simple words of someone who sees your struggle and says, "Sir, it's an honor." If this story touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories that celebrate the quiet heroes among us, the single parents, the mentors, the friends who stand up when it matters most. Because in a world that often celebrates the loudest voices, sometimes it's the quietest acts of courage that truly change lives.